Hello, and welcome to our series, The Art of Data Leadership. We'll have Chief Data and Analytics Officers, that's CDAOs, interview other CDAOs and data leaders about best practices, worst practices, interesting insights, fun stories, and another few fun tidbits along the way. Well, today's a little bit different. Today, I get to interview Shayde Christian. He's our very own CDAO here at Cloudera, where we both work. Welcome, Shayde.
Thank you, Hannah. It's very good to be with you.
I'm turning the tables. I get to interview you today.
I'm sorry you have to do that.
Well, let's just get right into it, right?
Okay.
You talk all the time about business value. It's not just a fluffy term. It's something that you talk about a lot. Why?
What else is there to talk about? That's why we exist. I mean, we're here to drive business value for our customers. That's the only reason that data and analytics is in service at any corporation. So it is the existential topic.
Is this a new phenomenon? Is that why we're hearing so much about it? Isn't it?
I don't think so, but I think it's expanding. I mean, this topic is ever present at summits, conferences, blogs, articles. We're all talking about it. I think we're all talking about it because when you have an upheaval at a corporation and a new leader comes in, and that leader is used to getting a lot of value out of data and analytics, and you're not providing that value, you get questioned and scrutinized. And I think that's been happening to a lot of CDOs in recent years. And so the understanding of what business value is, why you exist as an organization providing data and analytics, is now front and center for all of us.
How is this changing the mindset of CDAOs?
The average tenure of a CDAO today is around 3 years. I think over 60% of those who work themselves out of an organization do so because there's a change in leadership or there's a change in strategic direction. A lot of times that has to do with the new leader coming in, getting a lot of business value out of data and analytics, and learning that where he or she comes into, the CDAO or the data organization is not focused on business value. So you start to learn the language very quickly. You start to learn that you're not there to have a data governance program. You are not there to provide just trusted data. You are there to impact the top line and the bottom line of the company. So the first mindset shift is really all about understanding who you are and why you provide your data products in terms of business outcomes and business value that you drive. It's not simply about deliverables and reports and analytics.
That is a very different role. I started my career covering the data industry, and this role has changed a lot. 3 years is a really short tenure. How do CDOs kind of deliver value and avoid that unpleasant scrutiny in that leadership role?
The upheaval. If you are supporting your C-suite, they're going to want to know, and they're going to ask you in your one-on-ones, what are you doing to help me with our business objectives? So the mindset, you're really a business leader. You're less a tech leader, and you are focused on the needs of the business. That's the start of it. That then enables you to understand and align everything you do with the corporate objectives, right? If you know that sales needs to increase, that the bottom line needs to improve, that customer success needs to improve by a certain metric, then you can judge every request you get against those corporate objectives. And if they're not in alignment, you reject them. Then, of course, you do what you've always done before your mindset was developing. You deliver constant value to the business. But even that's not enough anymore. There is an important aspect of storytelling. If you have been successful at continually delivering value, and it is value that is being seen in business outcomes, then you've got to rave about it. You've got to make everybody aware of what you're doing. That's what prohibits the scrutiny from coming in, people not being able to question your value. And to your point about tenure, it allows you to stay in your role for a little while longer.
Storytelling. That's been a big buzzword, but it's real, right? Weren't you a screenwriter before? That's part of your story.
Once upon a time, and you were a singer.
I am a singer.
You are a singer. Well, I'm not allowed to do screenwriting anymore. But both of them are storytelling mediums.
They are both storytelling mediums. And the story flow is really important, like how I deliver a song or how you write a movie, getting that all in the right order, making it interesting.
Yeah.
How do you do that for data?
Well, I think that Screenwriting and storytelling as a CDAO are vastly different, but very, very similar. Bit of a paradox. Stories are really charting a journey of a character, or a journey of a unit, the value of an organization. There's a setting involved. If you're in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you're in the Gobi Desert, right? But if you're a data and analytics unit, your setting is the corporate culture and the objectives of the organization that you are there to support. So you have a setting. The plot, of course, is what you're doing along the way and what you're delivering. The resolution isn't what you deliver. It's not the output. The resolution is the outcomes that you're providing to your business partners. It is that top line, bottom line growth. It is you being able to achieve your pipeline goals this year, Hannah. And one of the important aspects of both mediums, screenwriting and CDAO storytelling, is this notion of setups and payoffs, right? You tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, but you do it in a surprising way. So it's very important to always check in with your leaders and your key stakeholders and let them know what's coming, let them know what you're doing, what's going on, and what you have developed and delivered in the past in terms of business value.
So are they the audience, the business leaders rather? They're mostly the audience for these stories? Like, who's around the campfire when you're telling your stories?
It's key stakeholders, it's C-level, E-staff. It's establishing one-on-ones with these folks to make sure that they get engaged and stay engaged. Without them, you'll fail. And they're the ones who need to understand at middle management all the way up to the top what you're doing and what your value is to avoid the scrutiny, to lengthen your tenure.
This is interesting because what you're talking about is pretty different than some of the roles that the data people I've worked with all my life, and my dad was a database guy as well. These are really different roles. It sounds like there's a lot of diplomacy, change management, like it's telling stories. Like, it's a very different role. What kind of diplomacy is involved in this role now?
Diplomacy. My career has been mostly as a principal consultant for a niche data strategic consulting firm. That's where we met, actually.
That is.
As a consultant, all you have is the power of influence. You don't have purse string authority. You don't have the power of position, right? So you have to continue to finesse and diplomatically influence outcomes. I think when I first became a data leader, I started to segue into that other area where I had power of position, but it's short-lived in terms of effectiveness, because the influencing that you need to do to be able to get the funds, to be able to get the resources, to be able to gain the engagement of senior executives and key stakeholders is all about influence. You can't command that. So influence diplomacy, I think, is essential.
Do you get to do any like architecture? Do you spend all your day in meetings and telling stories to leaders? Like, what is your job like now? Do you get to do any kind of like fun design stuff, or is it all talking and telling stories?
My team is wise enough not to let me near a keyboard to code. They don't want me breaking anything. So no, most of my role is about storytelling, about gaining support, about making sure that we are telling right stories. As you know, I also spend a lot of time working with external customers and making Cloudera's customers successful by imparting best practices to them as well. So no architectural fun, but I have a lot of other fun.
Okay, so let's talk about teams. That's been like a really hot topic. Team structure, whether it's centralized and decentralized in units. What is important about the structure of the team to deliver all of this value?
You're going to be shocked that it has everything to do with business value.
What?
I'm a broken record. So what business value are you providing? What are you there to do? That kind of lets you know what your team structure is. If I'm a marketing group and I have in-house analytics expertise and I need my data products and analytics turned over very quickly, I need them tomorrow, then I will tend to want to build a decentralized data community model where you can keep those resources and they can be that responsive to you. If I take those on into my centralized group, they're not going to be as responsive to you. And over time, they're going to lose some of their data and business domain knowledge. If your organization needs efficiency to scale, for instance, usually that's a good time and a good justification for centralization. I think centralization for platform engineering, data engineering, and data architecture typically makes sense. With data and analytics products and reporting, dashboarding, it just depends on what the business needs are.
Typical consultant, it depends, right?
People process technology.
Oh, drink. So I'm wondering how this team structure helps drive innovation, and then even within those teams, how do they progress in their career to become data leaders?
It's a tough question to answer. I think many of what you'll learn in this series is that CDAOs, data leaders, heads of data, heads of analytics, the titles are all different, but they're really at different levels of the organization. Some are C-level resources, some are SVPs, EVPs, VPs, even director level resources. I think it's the question really comes down to mindset again. I think that when you go from individual contributor to manager, that's the hardest transition to make in a career. I think the second is to go from a mid-level manager to a VP level, because you've got that huge mindset change to make, that you're now an officer of the company, whether you're called that or not. You're now looking out for the top line and bottom line interests of the company. And so I think how one becomes that, how one grows and segues into it, has to do with that mindset change and understanding the business, what your business is trying to accomplish, and really be in the service of those outcomes.
So it's, practically speaking, it's understanding the strategy, using more of those words, paying attention on those all hands calls, and listening. Like, what else helps people move from that senior leader or architect or sort of senior data person to a real leadership role that has clout within the organization?
I had a conversation with Suds, our chief product officer, this week, and I'm coming to him with my ideas about AI and how we are going to automate some of the more arduous tasks to perform in data management space. So Suds and I are dialoguing about this. He's giving me his ideas about what he's doing with product. And since we're the group inside Cloudera that uses our own products,
right,
it's my accountability and responsibility part of those conversations as well. That's what I'm referring to. If I feel like I'm the person operating the data governance program, that's great. If I'm providing trusted data, that's wonderful. If I'm affecting analytics extensibility throughout the organization, that's wonderful. These are all great aims. But I have to really understand where my company is, where the technology is, where the trends are, and provide my own thought leadership with my peers and superiors to be part of the sustainability and growth of this company.
I want to go back to something you said about AI and arduous tasks. Are you talking about requirements meeting with my team? No.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
I'm just curious, how will AI change the role of the CDAO?
Well, we're going to find out. I think it'll be different with heads of data versus heads of analytics. If you just handle the analytics group, you're obviously going to now be severely searching for talent in AI, because you're going to be providing it. You're going to bone up on the tools. You're going to now train models. You're going to now utilize what's come to further and automate and evolve the business goals of your corporation. So that's going to be about finding talent, which is difficult. I think the stat I recently read was there are 1.4 million jobs open in technology around the world. The rate of graduates with sufficient degrees globally is 400,000. So the gap is only growing. And the other stat is that most, I think over 80%, 90% of companies who are getting talent out of school feel that they're not yet prepared, that a lot more training is required. And so this gap in technical capacity is only growing. So that's their challenge. I think with data management leaders, data leaders, they're going to have to start thinking about what I spoke of with Suds earlier in the week. How are we going to use AI for metadata management? How are we going to streamline our data engineering functions? So they're going to be looking more at the internal side of change, where analytics will look at the enterprise level rate of change within the business.
Interesting. So you're not worried about AI taking your job?
The pink slip I got, it didn't mention AI. It mentioned something about recalcitrance. I didn't know that.
That's relieving. I'm curious. So you've worked with the team that I manage at
Yes.
Cloudera, and you've delivered some quick wins for us. It was super fast, made a big impact for our team. Thank you. I want to say thank you for that.
Sure.
Because we did have to work to kind of get on the radar, get on the calendar, and once we explained, it's real quick. So that quick win was really important to us. But I know you're always kind of thinking long term. How do you prioritize, like when my group wants something or another group wants something? How do you prioritize those quick wins and then long term value?
First of all, I want to harken back to that request you made of us. The first thing our head of BI came to you and said was, what is the business value you're going to get out of this request? I've read the ticket, right? It's, what are you going to do with this? What's it going to enable you to do? How many people this? Efficiency that, right? So I'm very thankful that our data analytics culture enables us to really put forth to our customers what is the value of what you're trying to accomplish. And that enables us to prioritize is the answer. If we've got a $5 million win versus a $50,000 win, we know what our priorities are. Now, in terms of how you prioritize, or how I have been prioritizing quick wins, delivering business value to customers today versus investing in strategic initiatives and the goals of tomorrow. I have been fortunate enough to have started or turned around several data and analytics organizations. So I'm usually starting from a place where change is required and necessitated, which is why I am there. And so why is that fortunate for me in this case? Because I'm there and going to be asking for capacity to be reserved for strategic initiatives. And I'm going to reclaim that capacity for us inside the group. And I'm lucky because folks are amenable because things are going wrong or haven't been started yet. So I started a couple of years ago, I started a first-time enterprise data and analytics organization where the stability of the platform was suspect at best, right? And so it wasn't difficult at all for me to be able to convince senior leaders that a certain amount of capacity needed to be devoted to stability and optimization. If you don't have that opportunity or advantage, then my recommendation would be that you put this to a steering committee, that you have a 3 to 5 members in the C-suite be your steering committee and bring them the need that you have to invest in the future.
So I'm curious how you know all of this. I know you've been in this space for a long time. How do you get new ideas? Like, how do data leaders learn most effectively? I know there's a lot of newsletters I get in my inbox and conferences. What do you do? Who do you learn from?
We learn from each other. I think we're going to find in this series how much I'm going to learn from the people that I interview. And we talk to each other at summits. We talk to each other one-on-one. Sometimes we'll contact each other. How are you addressing this problem? Interestingly, we're not looking for a manual on how to do things. We're not looking for step-by-step instructions. It's just these nuggets. I think I was here in Houston at a conference when the question to me on a panel was, how are you measuring the efficiency that you're bringing to an organization? And I talked about how we actually look at the time it takes when a request is given to us. How long do people have to work to manually produce a report, such that when we automate it, we know what our savings are. When we take over the data and analytics for an organization so that they can reclaim capacity for more important things, we know and can tally what that reclamation of FTE is. And so when I'm saying this on stage, like everybody's typing into their phones, because it's just one little thing that we were doing that they weren't doing. And I do the same thing. When I hear these nuggets of, oh, we're not doing that, we need to do that. And usually they're easy to implement. Usually we have the understanding and knowledge to understand what we're hearing and be able to implement it quickly. So these videos, things like this, we'll learn little nuggets, the things we don't do and that we can incorporate quickly.
I think some of the in-person events too can be really valuable, right? For being like not always reading, but just talking with somebody about.
I think they're the most effective. Some of the stats I'm realizing that I quoted you, I got from a summit, especially with the resources and the 1.4 million. So I jot those down. Those are nuggets for me to understand what I'm going to be facing in the future.
And that is why we are having our Evolve event series where we're getting together data leaders to talk. And I think, I work a lot on the content for our series, and those sessions are great, but I know the good nuggets happen in the hallway, right?
I think so. I think, again, it's just that small little thing that, oh, is that what works for you? What are you doing here? What are you doing there? Sometimes it's from stage, but a lot of times it's one-on-one or a group of folks chatting over wine.
Is this like all you do, Shay? What do you do when you're not talking about data?
Hold on.
Sleep? What do you do when what else do you do?
What do I do when my wife is a chef, a retired chef, so she chefs just for me. So I eat like a king, chocolate souffle. She graduated from both sides of Cordon Bleu in Paris, culinary chef and pastry chef. So I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I tend to love to play guitar. I'm a Steve Vai fan and Eddie Van Halen and that kind of stuff.
I have noticed that a lot of data leaders are into music.
Yeah.
I gave away guitar picks one time at a conference, and I got a lot of people walking by.
It's very true. And a couple of my friends have their bass guitars or six strings hanging behind them in their office at work.
I know more than a few analysts who have that behind them. I keep my ukuleles under the desk, right, out of sight.
Ukulele?
This is so much fun. I could keep asking you questions. I probably will, but I think probably the cameras will stop rolling at some point. Thank you so much, Shayde.
I don't think they run out of film anymore.
Right, that's right. We can keep going.
You're so fun.
Thanks, Shayde.